The last time I was on a TEDxJacksonville stage was October 22nd, 2022. Amo was with me. Members of Non-Kama Pan-African Drum and Dance Ensemble joined me to present a rhythm and dance of the Mandinka people called Lamba. The first notes were from an ancient instrument, the balafon, played by one of our resident elders and culture bearers, Papa Abu. Next, the voice of one of our young proteges, Patience, rose in a song in Bambara language, honoring the Jali, who are the oral historians and musicians who carry the stories of their people. Now, we spent months preparing, rehearsing endlessly, sewing costumes, and feeling the electric anticipation of sharing our work on such a monumental platform. The truth is, though, the preparation did not just begin in those months earlier or even years earlier. My very first African dance class with my very first African dance teacher, Ife Tayo, was not the beginning either. Instead, the spark that ignited that performance was born more than 800 years ago in 13th century Mali Empire. So how can our bodies be here in this time, recalling a story from centuries before we were born in a place that many of us were not? The answer lies in how this knowledge is carried. So we do the practical things, right? In our community, we seek out the proper teachers, we take notes, we rehearse, we drill over and over again. But we do seemingly unrelated things. We travel together, we eat together, we become family in this practice. We become sisters and brothers and aunties and uncles to each other's children, and sometimes new families are born because we become boyfriends and girlfriends and wives and husbands, but I digress. We become a microcosm of the larger African dance community and of the world. This is how embodied knowledge survives time. So to those outside of the grassroots African dance community, these ideas may not seem to connect, because most people, when they look at Africana dance forms or dance in general, they just see entertainment, not embodied knowledge. And too often, in professional dance spaces, Africana dance forms are dismissed as primitive or not as professional or without structure. They're flattened into a single image of what African dance is supposed to look like, as if Africa, an entire continent, can be summed up in one rhythm, one gesture, or one style. Dance education sometimes categorizes these dances as electives, and experts of Western dance forms have an opening to feel like they can give adequate critique even though they're novices. Sometimes they're referred to as other. And in higher education, until recently, there is a limit on the amount of credits the students could apply towards their dance degree. And this devaluation and this erasure was not accidental. In the United States, specifically, there was an intentional effort to silence African rhythm and movement. And after the Stono Rebellion of 1739, which resulted in some of the harshest slave codes ever in the colonies, drumming was outlawed, sometimes punishable by amputation or death. You want to know why? The drum is communication. The drum is organization. The drum is invocation. It calls people together across languages and borders, and that was frightening. So while drumming traditions continued openly in places such as Cuba and Haiti or throughout the Caribbean, here in the United States, the rhythm went underground and changed form, disguised as foot stomps and claps and the syncopation of field hollers and ring shouts, and reemerging as praise dance and jazz and even hip hop. Even under duress, the rhythm continued. So when Africana dance forms are dismissed as primitive or not as professional, we're not just witnessing unfamiliarity, we are witnessing the residue of censorship and fear. The truth is, every rhythm, every movement has a story. Every beat of the drum, every note of other traditional instruments, every complementary song call the community together for specific purposes. In West Africa, a rhythm called soro signals the village that it is time for the Casa Fete, and we all must come together and support the farmers in tilling the soil. And the women come out, and they're clapping, and they're singing, and they're bringing food to the farmers. The call, "Aiti willy ba dem baditi willy ba soli badase," tells the community that it's time to come celebrate the young men who have just completed their rite of passage over a slower rendition of a rhythm called soli. And under the light of a full moon, and young people dressed in their finest, hoping for a chance to dance with their crush, a rhythm called yankari and its dance becomes the soundtrack for the possible beginnings of young love. These aren't random movements without order. These are sophisticated, organized systems of communication. Modernity has taught us to separate dance from knowledge, to prize disembodied intellect over embodied wisdom. Across the world, under industrial and colonial paradigms, separating dance from everyday life did not make us more sophisticated or advanced. It made us more disconnected. And when we lose connection to our bodies, we lose connection to community and thusly our shared humanity. When we lose connection to rhythm, we lose connection to nature. It's all our problems. It's simple, really. We no longer live in societies where we dance together as part of everyday life. So when I say our bodies remember, I don't mean it metaphorically. I mean living memory encoded in rhythm and movement and communal practice. Think of little babies. We never have to tell them what dance is. They instinctually rock and bop and clap. And while I feel so blessed to be in the professional spaces that I am, as a dancer, as a choreographer, and as a teaching artist, it is imperative that I transmit the message that dance, first and foremost, is simply something humans do, not a tool of the elite, and certainly not just for entertainment. There has been so much growth in neuroscience and rhythm, but very little focuses on Africana dance forms specifically. Recent studies on rhythm reveal that movement supports the brain, supporting neuroplasticity and memory and emotional regulation. Studies on group dance show that synchronized movement aligns the brain waves and the heart rhythms, literally syncing nervous systems together. And a recent study from 2025 called Live Dance Sparks Brain Synchrony reveals that watching a live dance performance syncs the brain waves in ways that watching a video cannot, particularly when the dancers make eye contact. In this space between modernity and tradition, we find an opening. We reclaim embodied knowledge while expanding and transforming the way science listens to bodies informed by culture. Across centuries, these rhythms have traveled from global stages, village circles, sacred ceremonies, backyard gatherings, and city streets. What once lived as prayer and invocation now also lives in TikTok challenges, contemporary stage choreography, and Afrobeats concerts. And to honor this continuity, we must recognize the source. The intentional silencing of African movement and rhythm was meant to break the chain of cultural memory, but centuries later, here I am, and here you are, and here we are, still dancing. So when you see an Amampiano dancer seamlessly glide through rhythm as if in a trance, or when that praise break busts out in the middle of a church service, or when you see a crowd moving in unison to a popular Afrobeat song, or the way everybody runs to the floor when they hear, "Where them fans at?" You're witnessing something ancient in modern skin. Communal synchronization It is the same neural and spiritual entrainment my ancestors built communities on. And as a woman with genetic connection to these lineages, I do not take this lightly. My dance practice is not just performance, it's invocation. When I dance, I'm not just dancing by myself, I am communing with those who came before me, whose stories were silenced, and I'm ensuring their stories continue. When I teach, I am inviting the community into that sacred exchange. If I can leave you with anything today, it's that you look and listen differently when encountering these forms. When you move, ask what memory your own body carries. And when you witness a performance or you take a class, recognize the massive archive you are witnessing and being invited into. Our bodies remember. They've always remembered. And through rhythm and reverence and resistance, we keep that memory alive.